Hey everyone, it's been over 2 minutes, and despite all warnings, I haven't been raped yet. Looks like a good day. Hi, I'm Diana Davison, a Canadian men's rights activist. I've been following the work of law professor Elizabeth Sheehy, who's written a book called Defending Battered Women on Trial. I'm going through all the transcripts as she discusses them in her book, and we're on Chapter 3, the story of Kimberly Kondiewski. Kimberly's case is considered a classic case of battered women syndrome. Now, battered women sounds like a tasty treat or a clever way to hide broccoli. It is a clever way to hide something, and as we get into the details, I hope to make that clear to you. Kimberly met John Kondiewski in high school, and they were married around the age of 17. They both came from military families, and John went into the military. He was described by Sheehy as a patriarchal thinker, where he promised her that no wife of his was going to have to work. And this is part of what Kimberly liked about him. She moved in with him, they got married, and within a year, he forced her to get a job. Whenever Kimberly works, she'll hear that described as forced. So she wasn't very happy. That combined with him demanding too much sex from her and having her do things like polish his boots and so on. So she left him and I think went back to her family, her mother and father's house. And John came there and said, look, I want you back. I'll change my ways. I'm going to treat you better and I'll take good care of you. So she went back to live with him again. Shortly after, they moved to Brandon, Manitoba. They originally were in Ontario. Now, Brandon is kind of a bigger version of buttfuck nowhere. And she did become isolated from her family there, which is part of the battered woman syndrome requirements, this isolation factor. So after they arrived in Brandon, they had 2 children, first a girl named Jennifer and then a boy named Chris. And John insisted that, or forced her to go back to work again after her benefits ran out. Now, John was a military trainer. He was training soldiers, and he treated his family in much the same way. And he also had a fetish for guns. He had, in the end, a collection of around 50 rifles. He had all kinds of ammunition, some of it actually stolen from the army base, and it was illegal for him to have it in the house. And he spent a lot of money on this collection. He also took on girlfriends because Kimberly wasn't keeping up with his sexual needs. And so he always had a girlfriend on the side, which she knew about, and he spent lots of money on them with the family credit card. So he was running up massive bills, and she was forced to get 2 jobs. So she's isolated in not her hometown, but she's working 2 jobs, and her coworkers were told a lot about this relationship. They knew that he was abusive to her. They knew that he had other girlfriends, and they could see the way she was dressed. He didn't let her spend much money on herself. And she was suicidal. She tried to kill herself a few times. And potentially this is how John got in his head a final plan. After 17 years of marriage, he took out life insurance policies on both of them, and he told her that she was to kill herself and do it in a way that would look like an accident so that he could collect on the insurance. And he'd take that money, he'd pay off the family debt, and everybody would be happy, and she'd be dead, so who cares, right? And so she fought with him about this, and he came up with plans for her. He said, I want you to rent a car, drive it to Winnipeg, and while you're on the highway, swerve in front of a semi. And so she actually did rent a car and took the trip, but then she came home again, obviously still alive, and he was furious. So he came up with another plan. He wanted her to get in the bathtub and drop his razor into it. Well, nothing happened. And so then he said, well, try dropping the radio into it. And so she did that. Apparently nothing happened. No, she says she did it, but, who knows? It's hard to believe she actually did. Anyways, so then he frayed the cord on it and said, okay, do it again, right? And he came home and was furious because she was just sitting there crying and oh no, she was too sick. So she couldn't try it the second time because she was too sick. And so he was getting desperate. And his girlfriend that he was seeing at the time, he actually had a side plan too, because he's thinking, oh, this is great. She's going to kill herself. I can get the money. And then I've got this other girlfriend who he really liked. She was a psychologist, actually, and didn't know what was going on at the home. He proposed to the psychologist 4 days before the events went down that resulted in his death. So he had full plans to marry this other woman, and figured that this was all going to be really smooth. He's going to get the insurance money. This is not a nice guy. And there's no reason to think that Kimberly's lying about having been beaten by him, having been degraded by him, and having been afraid of him, right? So in the end, he picks the day. He says, May 15th, all the bills are going to come in, and I need you to be dead. And if you don't kill yourself on May 15th, I'm going to kill the kids and I'm going to kill you, because I'll have nothing left to live for. My life will be ruined. So Kimberly decides, I don't know if she was going to, at one point, considering doing this thing or not, but he came home from work. She was still alive. There was a big fight over the dinner table. And he stormed off to go to the gun club, and he took his girlfriend with him, you know, to be an alibi, basically. And had said to her, do it, you know, when I get home, it better be done. So she told her daughter, Jennifer, who was a teenager at the time, she said, well, I might not be here when you come home, so take your keys with you. And her son, I guess, went out somewhere as well. And so the daughter comes back later, sometime around 10 o'clock at night, and the door to her mother's room is locked, and the lights are out. But she starts to think, I think she's in there. So she's knocking on the door, going, Mom, where are you? And nothing. So John comes home, and Jennifer says, Dad, do you have a key to Mom's room? There was a bathroom off of the room, which the outside door being locked meant anybody entering had to go through the bathroom. So she's like, I think Mom's in the bedroom. Do you know where the extra key is? And the two of them traipse off to the bedroom, John probably expecting to find her dead. So they go in through the bathroom, and Jennifer opens the door to the bedroom, and sitting in the dark is Kimberly cradling a shotgun. Jennifer screams, peels out of the doorway. John goes storming towards the door, and she shoots him with the rifle. Then gets up. His body flies across the room. She gets up and shoots him 2 more times. Meanwhile, Jennifer is freaking out, screaming, running for the phone. So Jennifer's on the phone, calling for the police, send the police. My mom's gone nuts. She's got a gun. She shot my dad, and she keeps shooting. So the police get there pretty quickly enough to save Kimberly, who also shot herself in the stomach. Women don't like to shoot their heads. She was trying to accomplish a murder-suicide and, accomplished the first part, but failed at the second. So she left a note on the bed as well, and the note was apologizing to her children. It said that she couldn't let him destroy the family anymore, and that both of them were crap parents, and she was really sorry. So the police put her under arrest while she was in the hospital, still recovering from her gunshot wound, and charged her with first-degree murder. The evidence was pretty clear. There were witnesses. The daughter saw her. They had the phone call to 911. It's my mom. She's shooting. And they had a note on the bed saying basically that she'd planned it all. And, of course, Kimberly is going to take the battered woman's defense in order to get off the charges. So here are the problems with this case. And saying, yes, she was abused and he was obviously going to kill her. She had no other choice, even though she sat there and waited for him to come home, right? The additional bit about her reasonable fear was that he was friends with police officers through the rifle club or whatever, and so she figured she couldn't go to the police. The problems here are that he had illegal weapons. He'd already been arrested for misusing a weapon. He fired it through the ceiling of an apartment building when they were still in Ontario, and he'd been arrested for that. So she should have known that firearms charges would have got him put in jail, even if she didn't believe that her abuse story was going to have any dramatic results. So she, can't have been that stupid. She also, they claimed that she was in fear for her life, and that's why she couldn't leave, right? Because he terrified her. But they claimed that he never threatened the children until the very last moment, leading to the May 15th thing. So what she did know was that if she stayed, she was going to die. That was guaranteed. He'd already said to her, this is my plan, you need to die. And this had been going on for a number of months. So even if you take away all the opportunities she would have had through coworkers to work out a plan for her to get somewhere safe, The one thing that she did know was that when she stayed there, she was getting beaten on a regular basis, and that he was going to kill her. Her death was assured by staying. So at that point, even if nothing else could have led her to leave, to get strong enough to leave, the first time he planned her suicide for her would have been it. That would have been the breaking point. And they want us to believe that she was so degraded and so helpless that even that wasn't enough to break her. Another problem is we're repeatedly told that Kimberly was intent only on protecting her children. That's the only thing she had in her mind, that she let herself be abused, but she had to protect her children. In the end, on May 15th, she knew her daughter was in the home. She knew her daughter was trying to get into the room to talk to her, and she could hear her daughter coming into through the bathroom with her father. Jennifer, in fact, was the first person standing in front of Kimberly with her gun. And Jennifer was barely out of the room. She hadn't even finished leaving the bathroom when her father's body flew across the room with blood spattering everywhere, right in front of this child. So don't tell me that she cared about her children that much. John Kondyiewski, not a very nice guy, and he definitely was guilty of a lot of things. But we don't have the death penalty in Canada anymore, unless you're a guy being killed by a woman. Now, Dr. Fred Shane has testified at a lot of these trials and provably says the exact same thing. He has set phrases he uses, and then he says they definitely fit the profile. And I've caught about 3 or 4 different things that he says all the time. And in fact, another judge in Manitoba accused him of exactly the same thing. She said, "I have heard what you said, Dr. Shane. I've heard you say it many times, and it's always the same thing." You will in fact find that these psychiatrists will testify for anybody willing to pay them. What we really need to remember here is back at the beginning of this story, when John Kondyiewski told Kim that she wouldn't have to work, that he would take care of her, and that no wife of his would ever have to lift a finger, basically. And this is ultimately the reason why women stay. I understand that when somebody's putting you down all the time, and telling you that you're fat and you're useless and lazy and all these other things, that it gets hard to leave a relationship because you think, oh, well, I should just be happy that they love me. But the thinking behind that is that if they're all of these things, then who else is going to take them in? Who else is going to love them? But more importantly, who else is going to pay their bills for them? Because Kimberly wanted to have somebody to have children with who would work to pay her bills and to keep her in a sheltered house. And that's what trapped her into this relationship. If she didn't have that thinking, that retarded thinking that I described in my last video about women and the problem with women, why men need to stop marrying them, it really comes down to that. John was an army trainer. His job involved yelling at people and trying to teach them strength of character to make them really tough. Now, every time she put up with his beating or his yelling, he would have lost respect for her. And really, how do you respect somebody who has no willingness to participate in life, somebody who actually just wants to be taken care of? It's really difficult to respect somebody who is an adult acting like a child. And if women stop doing this, we will stop seeing Kim Kondyiewskis. We will stop seeing all of these, battered women's shelters complaining about male violence. Women who are going to these trials find it really difficult to see the way they're presented because it minimizes their creativity and their resourcefulness. They actually downplay it or submerge it, completely make it disappear. And Sheehy openly admits that this is one of the tactics to get the women off of murder charges. They're not that dumb. The problem here is not that Kimberly had 0 resources and 0 ability to help herself. It's that she grew up retarded. Like I said in my last video, women are retarded because they have in their head that they want to find a guy who's going to pay their bills, provide them a house, give them children, which then become their children, and have everything paid for them. And it's that kind of thinking that traps them. When the guy starts to degrade you and tell you that you're worthless and nobody, you're unattractive and nobody will ever want you, it's terrifying to the woman because how are they going to get someone else to pay their bills if that's true? They need to stop thinking like this. They need to stop expecting to be taken care of. One of the best things we can do to eliminate Kim Kondayuski problems, murdering of spouses, is to change women so that they don't do this, so that they grow up expecting to provide for themselves, and change men so they stop offering this role, stop putting themselves out there as willing slaves, because you're not going to like it. There is going to be resentment. Oh yeah, another interesting tidbit. Kim Kondayuski actually tried to collect the life insurance policy for John after shooting him and going to trial for murder. Okay, she got off with it, but she still shot him and tried to get the life insurance. And now for the rape joke of the week. Thanks to Nephenor. Nothing fucks a woman up more than stopping mid-rape, sighing, and saying, "Sorry, I'm just not that into you."